I often talk about a coming Tory civil war and what it might be sort of take place, how it might start, but maybe this is the first of a lot of things to come. And surprisingly, this of all things comes from a local newspaper called Spalding Today, where a Tory gent, a farmer, speaks out not only against Brexit, but against the government themselves, calling them totally irresponsible. And remember, we have seen numerous times from the past couple of by-elections that farmers are doing one thing in particular that should be warning the Tories very, very greatly. That is, they are moving their votes. They are no longer voting Tory. That is one thing. But also, where's this missing 10% going? as they were worried about so often, there's this missing 10%. Not only file that in, you've got farmers actively going, well, we're not going to vote for Tories because they've ruined our industry. And now you've got someone here who is a bigwig in the local sort of Tory movement over in Spalding, actively coming out, criticizing Brexit, and saying the government is completely irresponsible in what they are doing. And I keep on telling you, they're heading towards a civil war. That the Tory party, I think, when it loses the next election, is going to absolutely tear itself to shreds. And if you want an example, this is it. When you've got a Tory turning around and going, Brexit's a problem, this is your fault, you made it, you told us it would be good, it's not turned out like that way, and you're being completely and utterly irresponsible with your policies. This might be a complete nothing burger, but I'll tell you what, in certain sections of the Tory party, what this guy is saying probably might make a lot of waves. So you might never hear this from anyone else, that this guy had said this, apart if you'd seen this, unless you read Spalding Today. But I guarantee you, this has made waves somewhere in the Tory party. I can't tell you what those ripples will be, but I guarantee you this has made waves. And I also think this isn't the only guy thinking like this, because we know so, because we've seen other articles like this. So let's go diving into this to find out what he's had to say. So before we do go jumping into that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Of course, do remember to ring the bell as well. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page, the one after link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. There's the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the Pony Club down below as well. So let's go over to have a look at this today. So this is coming from Spalding Today with the title of Brexit has made our life harder and the government is totally irresponsible. So in this week's Word on the Ground column, Tory gent hits out at Brexit and what he sees as totally irresponsible government policies. So, as I write, it's snowing heavily. And as farmers look for some fine sowing weather, this again looks like a topsy-turvy season. What we cannot get to grips with is the topsy-turvy, confusing, misleading, and self-indulging politics. On one hand, the government rhetoric is to encourage more home food production, but every policy implements is instilled to do the opposite. During the past recent months, food supply and disruption and shortages have become very real. And we all have seen this, from eggs to now tomatoes. These are just two items in the extreme of this. Our industry and its leaders are taking no pleasure in being proved so right when the implication of a Brexit saying that we will see shortages and we told you this would happen. With Brexit, our hands were tied behind our backs with the sudden loss of labour and resources we had. And we had been benefiting from for many years, ensuring that crops could be harvested and supplies to our home markets, preventing the need for imports to contribute to the country's wealth. It's obvious if you don't have the labor, you don't plant the crop. So that's what's happening. And the supply stops. Food production for the 45 years in the European Union has benefited from support. Producing food, mainly due to weather and the extremes of markets, is a very risky undertaking. Responsible government has a duty to provide a stable food production to its citizens and protect businesses from these extremes. This support has been tremendously successful in the EU, ensuring a relatively stable food supply. So I want to point this out, that this Tory and Farmer, bear in mind, I don't know which way he voted on Brexit, but bear in mind, as we said, Farmers did not overwhelmingly all vote for Brexit. They were split if you look at the data, just as the rest of the country was. But you've got a guy here now going, yeah, look, the EU is having sensible policies and it's securing its own food supply, something which Tories and certainly hardcore Brexiteers have raged about for years, saying, don't worry about it because we can import cheaper food from Mexico or elsewhere. But now when they are doing that, you've got people like this guy who are turning around and going, well, actually, you're preventing our own growth. You're damaging farmers' interests, as we've seen from other things recently. We know that there's a potential big rebellion being brewed by George Eustace over the Canadian and Mexico trade deals. They have lost a sector which was so vital to them from a voting bloc perspective. It is unbelievable how much they have trashed the trust from farmers that they had in this sector. And we saw it recently with Theresa Coffey, who was meant to be going to what was considered a safe audience, but she got booed and questioned heavily over the over government policies. So the tide against them from these sort of rural communities is well and truly turned. Well and truly. So this is a situation that our present government seems to have completely abandoned. We were promised that the same total amount of money would be paid to the industry, but the problem is that money is rapidly moving from production to environment, which in itself is great. The problem, though, is twofold: that the money only covers extra environmental costs or contributes for lack of production. The result is that this money is taken away from supporting production at a time when costs are rising so rapidly and more home production is needed, not less, as we are seeing. So many farmers are just planning to reduce or completely cease production. We don't run our business as a charity, and we operate at least as must have reasonable with resources and a fiscal environment in place, that there is just no point committing ourselves to an unworkable situation. Brexit has also put place into a complex trading system that has caused masses of paperwork and a more expense, resulting in less haulage resources and a reluctance of companies to trade with the UK, which has resulted in situations like we've recently seen with tomatoes, where there is supply issues and there is a hassle and the cost of rising from our own self-imposed difficulties. We are going to be the first country to have supplies cut. The situation amounts to a totally irresponsible government, and we are seeing consequences of this clearly now. I mean, I'm just going to say this. Like, this guy, from what I know and when I've looked him up, he's quite influential in this area. So when he comes out in a local newspaper and says, the party I am a part of is acting in a completely irresponsible manner, this might not get picked up. This won't be mainstream news. This won't be even maybe regional news. But I can guarantee you, in certain sections of the Tory party, this has caused waves. So the question is now, will we see other like Tory party supporters who are part of the Tory party who are farmers now actively start to more speak out against the Tory party and its policies, especially regarding farming? I think that is likely because I think this could set off a chain reaction. This could set off a ripple because Spalding today, it's a tiny local news organization outlet. Yet this guy has written to it, feeling the need to criticize Brexit, the way that it's been handled, and of course, the government policies on farming. Now, he hasn't mentioned the trade deals yet, but I suspect he probably would have. But this adds up to something is brewing, and I think it's all going to do with farming and a potential farmers' rebellion in the Tory party and in rural seats. Something is coming, and I don't think Rishi Sunak and the other Tories really appreciate the amount of anger that there is brewing. And you can see it here. When you've got someone who is a very sort of influential Tory party, maybe not in the national sense, but maybe in the local Conservative area, saying this, there's trouble ahead. There is massive trouble ahead. And I do not think Rishi Sunak sees it coming. Because if we are to see what we reported just a couple of weeks ago with George Eustace preparing a rebellion about those Mexico and deals, we've seen numerous farmers actively rebel. We've got the NUF saying we're having enough about this. Something is coming, and it's going to hit the Tory party, and it's going to be coming from their own backyard. This is going to be coming from rural blue Tory areas. And it's building. There's something building. There's something coming. There's something going to happen because we're getting this constant pattern of these news reports constantly. Something is coming. Something is going to happen. It's just what's going to be the tipping point. What's going to cause this to really become a big issue? So we'll see. We'll see what could happen. But I keep on telling you, it's on its way. The trenches have been dug. Everyone's looking at each other very suspiciously. No one really wants to go to a general election in the Tory party, but they all know at any moment something could just boil over and cause it. They all know it, but they're all desperate not to try and avoid it. And the more you see this, the more you see them try to avoid it, the more stuff like this, which may come from a completely unexpected angle they were never expecting, could come out and just creep up behind them. So, yeah, as I always said, we'll keep an eye on this. Keep an eye on things like this. It's, yeah, you never know where these potential problems for Sunak could come from. And who knows? Maybe this could be it. Maybe this could just be a very innocuous start. Because most revolutions start very, 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 some randomly, some spark that triggers and it just spirals. Maybe this is it. I don't know. But I get the feeling something is coming from those rural blue Tory areas. And I do not think Sunak and the rest of the Tories are prepared for what is coming. So, as always, please remember to hit that, click that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So, we'll see you all next time.